Welcome to an Expense Manager tutorial. This tutorial will show you how easy it is to submit a supplier invoice for payment. When you want a supplier invoice to be paid, you will send these to Expense Manager and the process will be automated for you. In Expense Manager, you have a document vault. This is where your receipts and now your invoices are stored, ready for processing. You have a receipt email address and now you have a supplier email address. When you want a supplier invoice to be processed, you or your supplier will send the invoice to this email address. The easiest way to do this would just be to forward a supplier invoice to that address. Or you can upload an invoice as an attachment to an email you have created. When Expense Manager receives a supplier invoice, the invoice is stored and a new supplier payment request is automatically created for you. And at this time, we will send you an email letting you know that this has happened. When you receive the email, you know you can log in and submit it for approval. This process will usually only take a few minutes, but if this is an invoice from a new supplier, it may take a little longer. Here is the supplier payment request automatically created. So let's go ahead and open it. The supplier request has your nominated approver automatically assigned, but you can choose another approver, and you will do this particularly if this invoice is over that approver's limit. We will match the invoice to the correct supplier and we will create the expense line. But if the expense requires some additional information, we will prompt you with this message. When you open up the expense line, you will see we have attached the invoice. We have allocated the supplier. We've updated the amount and the GST. We also default your category and cost center, as well as match this supplier to a particular expense code if this is enabled. We will also include the invoice number and assign a project code if this is mandatory. The missing field in this payment request is the description. So let's go ahead and update this field so we can submit for approval. Now the supplier payment can be submitted. And it is now pending approval. And if we click through to the pending approval claims, we can see that it's sitting there waiting for approval. Just like any other claim, when it has been approved, you will receive notification via email. If you send a supplier payment to your vault and Expense Manager was not able to match it to a supplier, it will be highlighted for you. This message will appear, supplier not matched. You can use the supplier field to find the supplier, or you can request for this supplier to be created. When you start typing in the first 3 digits of the supplier's name, we will attempt to find the supplier. But if this is a new supplier, you can request for this supplier to be created. You can go ahead and fill in the fields, the pay to and address. Pay by check would usually be no. Add in the account name and the BSP and the account number. Fill in their ABN, the email address, and allocate the usual expense type that this supplier would belong to. You will note you are not able to update the supplier code. This will be updated by somebody in AP. When you save changes, you will notice that an email has now been sent to AP to update the supplier, and you'll be advised by email when this has been done. The supplier payment now has a pending status, and once the supplier payment has been updated with the new supplier, you will be advised and you can go ahead and submit this for approval. When the supplier has been created, your supplier request is unlocked and you will be able to submit for approval. At the time of creating a supplier payment, Expense Manager checks to make sure that this invoice has not been received before. If that does happen, you will not be able to submit this for approval and you will need to cancel this request. So just go ahead and cancel this claim. Your organisation may have a dollar amount limit for certain approvers. So if an invoice is received higher than the amount that the default approver has, you will be promoted to reallocate. When you try to submit this for approval, you will be advised it is over the limit. So you will need to choose an approver that has a higher limit. You will need to choose another approver and save the request, and then you will be able to submit for approval. So, in summary, email your supplier invoices to your vault, update the required fields, request a new supplier if this is required, reallocate to an approver with a higher limit if this is required, and cancel a request if this is a duplicate. Paying of suppliers in Expense Manager is totally automated and paper-free. Thank you.